Daniel Craig leaked the new Speedy about a year ago. Seiko updates a fan favorite, and I ate fish and chips in London to support the Alliance of British Watch and Clockmakers. It's episode 76 of A Week in Watches. I'm Zach Weiss, co-founder of Worn and Wound. Thanks for joining me. As I said in the last episode, I was going to dedicate much of the next episode, which is this episode, to the British Watchmakers Day, which is what I am going to do, but unfairly, other watch brands launched some pretty important stuff that I just have to talk about first. Before I get into it, this episode is sponsored by William Wood and their newly released Fire Exit watch. The watch features a Swiss-made Sellita SW220 day-date movement, a green glow, and a day complication with 7 illustrated days of the week featuring multiple fun references to the Fire Exit Man icon. Learn more about how William Wood expanded their Firefighter heritage brand with this creative and colorful watch later in the episode. Like and subscribe, it makes us happy. Let's get on with the show. Omega did a thing. Did you hear? If you consume watch news on the internet, you already know about this, but I would be remiss not to feature it, if only briefly, on A Week in Watches. It is big news, after all. And what's that news? Well, there's a new Omega Speedmaster, and it's white. Well, not all white, like the white side of the moon, rather like a normal Speedmaster, but with a white dial. But also not like the Snoopy or the Alaska Project, or any of the other white-dialed Speedmasters, but also not that different either. Anyway, it's a white dial Speedmaster Professional, and it's not limited, which is the real news. It's part of the collection proper, and it looks pretty darn good. The 42mm asymmetrical case, the bracelet, the movement, they're all the same as the other 3861 Meta-certified Speedies. No surprises there. It's just a new color, but I do like how they executed the details. So once again, it's clean white. It has been varnished and lacquered for a shine, and it looks truly clean and sterile even. All of the printed index are black, save the word Speedmaster, which is in a provocative streak of red. The hands are black as well. So far, it's really just an inverted Speedy. But there is one interesting change: applied markers for the batons rather than printed loom. As they kept the pie pan shape of the newest generation, which harkens to an older generation and objectively looks better than the dials in between, in my humble opinion, the applied batons have to climb a little hill. Rather than making them flat, they sort of look like a staircase shape, and actually bridge the lower and higher surfaces with a space underneath. In theory, that space could create some interesting shadows and spillage of light. Altogether, it makes for a much more contemporary and perhaps a touch more luxurious looking dial. While the classic Speedmaster is available with the beloved Hess-like crystal enclosed caseback combination, the new white Speedy is sapphire sandwich only, which also means there are polished links on the bracelet. The Moonwatch in white, as Omega calls it on their site, is priced at $7,800 on a strap and $8,100 on a bracelet. Is it just me, or are these getting more expensive faster than they used to? Seiko updates an updated update. In 2020, Seiko released the SPB 149. This Prospex diver was part of the brand's celebration of the 55th anniversary of the first Seiko diver. A modern but relatively affordable take on the 62 Moss, it was one of the first times it really felt like Seiko got what the enthusiasts were looking for, myself included. This was evidenced by the fact that this model and its sibling references replaced watches with similar 62 Moss intentions that had been released but a few years prior. Smaller and more true to the 62 Moss's design, the new watches weren't just an update, they were an overhaul. Well, just the other day, Seiko did it again, though this time they were less aggressive with the scalpel. Now, truly in the realm of an update, the newly announced SPB 451, 453, and 455 are meant as replacements for the models born in 2020, featuring new movements and slightly altered and even improved specs. The case has been reduced from 40.5 millimeters to 40 in diameter, shrunken from 47.8 to 46.4 lug to lug, and thinned from 13.2 to 13 millimeters. Small changes, but changes nevertheless that likely add up on the wrist to a svelte and easy-wearing watch. Interestingly, Seiko also increased the depth rating to 300 meters. Now, that might not be an uncommon number for dive watches, but it is for Seiko, whose modern divers typically are at 200 meters, save some tunas and other more extreme watches. Do you need another 100 meters of water resistance? Likely not, but it'll probably shut up a few trolls who constantly comment about it. Who am I kidding? They'll find something else to whine about. Internally, Seiko has replaced the 6R35 with the 6R55, which increases the power from a pitiable 70 hours to an impressive 72 hours. Yes, that was sarcasm. 2 hours is not a big deal in my book, but apparently it is for Seiko, as they now have the hours needed to put 3 days on the dial. I guess almost 3 days just doesn't have the same ring to it. Which brings me to the dial. It's almost the same as the previous generation, save a couple of details. The first is what I just mentioned. Now on the bottom half of the dial, you'll find the Prospex X, under which it reads automatic 3 days, and then finally divers 300 meters. I have to say this irks me some. While I don't think it should say 3 days on the dial because it's not really a big deal, let alone something you need to see every day, it completely changes the layout. Before, when it was just an X, and then automatic, and then divers 200, you had a pleasant little triangle shape. It fit. It looked good on the dial, or at least as good as, frankly, unnecessary text can look. But now, well, the balance is off. The second line is too long. It's texty. I mean, what do they think this is, a Pelagos? Moving on, they also moved the date from a rectangular window at 3 to a circular window at 4.5 to have a fully loomed index. Yes, it's a circular window. Deal with it. There was actually an in-between version of this line that had a date window at 3 and a smaller loom block to its side, but well, that's a different topic. There's so much hate for these windows, which, like it or not, Seiko seems to be rolling out on more and more dive watches. In other words, it's the new code. They aren't going to be going back anytime soon. But I'll tell you why I like it. It's discreet. It's there when you need it, and it disappears when you don't, like something in your peripheral vision. Sure, you can fixate on it like anything else, like the words 3 days, or you can accept it, roll with it, enjoy it. And the angle of the numbers is corrected, so it doesn't seem lazy to me. And that's because it's not. It's a very intentional design decision. Anyway, there are 3 of these new divers to start, though I'm sure there will be many more in the future. The SPB 451 has a blue dial and bezel. The 453 has a black dial and bezel. Both of those have silver markers and hands. And then the SPB 455, which has a warm gray dial and bezel, but with gold accents. They all look good, but the straight black 453 is just very crispy. All cost $1,300 on bracelets and will hit stores in June. And now, a word from our sponsor.
Today we're taking a closer look at William Wood's latest release, the Fire Exit Watch. The day movement contains 7 illustrations produced by British watch designer Max Resnick, displaying the fire exit man icon acting out different parts of the week, like late for work, commuting, and partying. The watch dial and glass bezel are Pantone color matched to the fire exit green sign. It contains a Sellita SW220 movement and has a 41mm case that comes in at 13.8mm thick, and it is water resistant up to 100 meters. The strap is made from upcycled fire hose in a British racing green color. The watch is priced around $1,950, and pre-orders that are placed in March will be delivered in September of this year.
All right, we're back with the main story of the episode. The Brits celebrate themselves. Last weekend on March 9th, the Alliance of British Watch and Clockmakers held their inaugural British Watchmakers Day, a fair designed to celebrate the UK's growing watch industry. Before we get into that, it's worth looking at the Alliance itself. Founded in 2020 by Roger Smith and Mike France, the Alliance is a non-for-profit trade organization created to organize and promote watch and clock makers and brands within the UK and Republic of Ireland. Through the Alliance, they hope to further the sector's growth, provide a voice both nationally and globally for their members, promote British provenance, and help encourage the creation of watchmaking supply chain and jobs within the UK. In the years since launch, the Alliance has grown to include over 90 companies, held several open dial events for their members. Speaking of, anyone can become a supporting member for an annual fee, which includes some VIP benefits and a nifty lapel pin. And now they have organized and hosted the British Watchmakers Day. The event, which took place over a single day, hosted 44 British brands in Lindley Hall within the Westminster area of London. A ticketed event, over 1,000 watch enthusiasts and a handful of us media were in attendance. The event played out much like a wind-up, I dare say, with brand founders, owners, designers, and employees interacting directly at tabletop booths with collectors. Watches were held, tried on, enjoyed, and purchased, etc. As this was a British watch fair, no large Swiss luxury brands or conglomerates were in the room. Rather, the largest company was likely Christopher Ward, who, to their credit, are quite a bit larger than one might expect with over 50 employees. As an aside, upon arriving in the UK, our first stop was actually at Maidenhead, the town that Christopher Ward's headquarters are located. While there, we got a tour of their bustling buildings, and I have to say, I was quite impressed by how streamlined their operation is. There were multiple rooms of watchmakers servicing Ward's watches from over their 20 years of existence. There was also a dedicated quality control area that currently had a large batch of fresh bel cantos in for examination, areas for customer service, marketing, communications, design, shipping, etc. It really was very cool to see. But back to the fair. The mix of brands was very enjoyable, including many I'm very familiar with, like Isotope Ferrer and Studio Underdog, the latter of which had a line dozens of people long waiting to buy one of their pizza watches from either Richard Bank, the brand founder, or Andrew McCutcheon from Time and Tide, both appropriately wearing chef's hats. But where was I? Right. I also got to meet various brands for the first time, like Clements, Bowcroft, and Sidrus. There were also some incredible clocks, and of course, Mr. Roger Smith was in attendance along with a small selection of his exceptional watches, though those ones were behind glass. As part of the event, brands were encouraged to create limited editions available only at or first at the event. To that end, there were some pretty cool watches unveiled this weekend, so I figured I'd go over a few. The first is the Fears Brunswick 38mm 1924 edition. An edition of only 10 pieces that sold out fast. It featured a white lacquer dial with black numerals and a fantastic typeface and black indices based on the model from 1924 that actually inspired the Brunswick line to begin with. The dial was gorgeous in person, looking almost like enamel because of how the lacquer was applied. But perhaps the most surprising feature was the case, which, though appearing like an ordinary steel Brunswick, was actually made out of sterling silver. As such, it had a different luster to it and a heft. It will likely also patina in interesting ways. I know it's disappointing that it is sold out, but have no fears, wink. They have launched a model called the Silver Noir, which is essentially the same watch, but with an inverse dial, black surface and white text. Those are made to order in batches and will cost $4,200. Another model that caught my eye was the Arken Ultrum Year of the Dragon. The all-titanium Ultrum is already a pretty damn cool watch, given its proprietary GMT module and overall unique design, but this limited edition pushed things a little further. The dial surface, rather than being matte gray or black, is dark blood red and stamped with a deep scale texture, giving it the look of dragon skin. And trust me when I say, it looks very cool. The watch was limited to 60 pieces in honor of brand founder Kenneth Lamb's mother, who was born in the year of the dragon 60 years ago, which is a very nice touch. It was priced at £630. They hadn't sold out, so there will be some available online. You can get one if you're lucky. Last but certainly not least was Christopher Ward, who created a special edition bel canto limited to 10 pieces that were sold via a raffle system due to the high demand. Called the Bel Canto 9324 for the date of the Watchmakers event, it featured a laser-etched Union Jack platine with various traditional guilloche textures in a dark blue. I had my bel canto on for the event, and side by side, the difference in the blues was very noticeable. In addition to the dial surface, the index of the time-telling dial, which is a weird thing to say, has been redesigned to have a cool traditional meets modern concept. Though it's still skeletonized, the applied markers are replaced with printed Roman numerals in like sort of an explorer arrangement, 12-3-6-9. There is also a raised railroad index. It's a really cool look that I feel like they should consider bringing to a core model or two as well. Anyway, as I said, these are long gone, so yeah, just too bad. If you really liked it, onward we go. Obviously, there was a lot more to see at the British Watchmakers Day event, but to sum it up, it was a big success for the Alliance and the brands involved. I'm very happy I got to be there and experience the inaugural event, and I look forward to future editions. Frankly, I'll take any excuse to go to London, eat fish and chips, have a nearly uncarbonated beer. I'm not joking, I really do like both. And well, I recommend you check it out if they do it again. And that's that for episode 76 of A Week in Watches. Thank you again to William Wood for sponsoring this episode of A Week in Watches. Discover the new Fire Exit watch with its illustrated day movement at williamwoodwatches.com. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Check out wornaround.com daily for all the watches fit to print. I'll see you next time.